everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today's video is going to be a TBR bookshelf tour. So from the title, might sound a bit odd, but basically the shelf behind me, these 4 little cubes, contain my TBR list. Heard that right. I have 2 bookshelves. That's 4. 2 bookshelves, and my one upstairs is obviously a bigger bookshelf, like a taller one, and it contains most of my childhood books. I did not keep a lot of them, but I still have a huge amount that it's filled up majority still. So I'm in the process of currently pulling a lot of those out and selling them, and then also taking them to secondhand bookshops sort of thing, those that accept kids secondhand books. But yeah, that is a slow process, but once that is done, I can see how much space I've got, and then I can continue to add books in there. That bookshelf upstairs basically going to be filled with the books that I have read, and the bookshelf down here is going to be my TBR list. So I thought I'd make a video out of it and show you guys what is on my TBR list. Some of these books, I do have to preface, I have read, so if you see I skip over a book, that is why. I'm just obviously going to basically just go through them. We have some at the back. I'll start with the one on the top. The first one is Anxious People by Frederick Backman. I have never heard of this book in my entire life. I just walked into QBDE the other day and I saw it, and it really caught my eye, the cover, obviously, because it's a bunch of different people sitting in their windows, clearly indicating that there's multiple storylines, multiple different lives you're following. I read the back, it sounded really interesting. Give a quick synopsis. It's about multiple people who were held hostage in an apartment room by a robber who was meant to be a bank robber, and you basically follow their storylines as well as policemen's storylines, funny enough, which is what I started reading, if you couldn't tell. But the format of writing that this author uses, you have to be in a certain mood to want to read it, if that makes sense. I just wasn't in the mood to read it at that point, so I have put it down for now, but I'll definitely come back to it. The first one is The Spanish Love Deception. As you can see, I've already started reading it, clearly, but I didn't like it. I will have to come back to it. It's just so dull to me. I'm sure it might be a slow burner. It is 400 pages. At the moment, it's just very hating game vibes. It's giving me hating game vibes to the max, and that book was okay, like wasn't anything phenomenal. I did definitely enjoy it more than the movie. At the same time, I was glad it wasn't 400 pages when this one is. I'm gonna have to psych myself up, so I put a bookmark because there's absolutely no way I'm going to reread the first 100 pages. I haven't missed much from the first 100 pages. It's literally her trying to decide whether or not she wants this guy to be her wedding date. 108 pages. Next one is Bush School by Peter O'Brien. It is a biography book. It is about a man who went into rural Australia and basically in the 1960s, and he taught a range of children from ages 5 to 15 years old. So it was 18 of them. And yeah, it just goes through how he basically teaches all of them, their lesson prep and all that. Really fascinating, and obviously I'm going into uni to study to become a primary school teacher, so I think obviously I'll find it a little bit more interesting because I am passionate about teaching and children, and I think it'll be very interesting to see a teacher's perspective. Then I have The Miseducation of Evie, Epworth by Mason Taylor, I think. This book follows a girl, a 16-year-old girl, I believe, also in the 1960s. Yeah, a 16-year-old girl in the 1960s trying to escape her soon-to-be stepmother, who's a money grubbing schemer and is manipulative. She doesn't want to stay in the stinky salons, and she wants to create her own life and find herself. Yeah, that's what this book is about. I have had it on my Goodreads since 2020, and I came across it in Dimmicks, which you would have listened to in my vlog. I don't have a Dimmicks near me, so when I saw it in Dimmicks where I was like, gotta pick it up, because I haven't seen it in store, like a hard copy of it in person at all. So I picked that one up. Now moving on to The Wall, the first cubicle, The Garden of Hopes and Dreams by Barbara, I think it is Barbara Hannay, I'm gonna say. That's what I'm guessing. I could be completely wrong. This one is about an apartment block, about people who don't know each other and how they come together and learn about their different lives by creating a communal garden, because that gardening is something they can all relate to, and then that's how they become interconnecting. So just like a little sweet, light-hearted book. and I got this in lockdown. I don't remember which lockdown, but I got it in a lockdown and I definitely wanted to read it, and I'm saving it for a day where I'm just, you know, in the mood for like a light-hearted read. At the moment I'm not at uni yet, so I can read stuff that is quite, not intense, that's not the right word, but more detailed because I have the brain capacity. So this book will be perfect when I've got to read different source materials and I just want something that I can just lightly read and not really think about. Then we have Sally Hepworth. We have The Younger Wife. I believe this is one of her newer books. It's one of her newer books, released in 2021. I have read The Secrets of Midwives and I loved that book. I loved it. It was so different. It was intergenerational. It was 3 generations, grandmother, mother, daughter, and they all have a secret obviously, and just finding out the secrets and their lives. You get each perspective. It was just really well written and I really loved it. There's obviously a little bit of romance in it, but the romance is not like your stereotypical like romance, if that makes sense. It just works really well with the book. It's very history based. Yeah, I loved it. I would recommend. That was the first book I read of hers, so I picked this one up because this was the next one that interests me. I'm not so sure about the other ones yet. I'm just gonna read this one to see I like her or that was just like a one-off book, but I definitely love her writing style. It's very straight to the point, doesn't blabble around like the Spanish Love Deception. I forgot to say that's by Elinor. What is the difference I found is I love authors that get to the point. It's a good storyline. So when I found her and I really enjoyed her, I picked up another one of her books. Next we have You and Me on Vacation. Yes, I have still not read this book. I've had it in my bookshelf since December and you would have seen it in my book haul. I really just have not gotten around to reading it. I tried to read it, which you would have seen in one of my vlogs, and I just couldn't do it. Definitely gonna have to be similar to this situation where I have no brain cells left and I'm not looking for something to stimulate my brain, because this book, when I started it, it was just very predictable and I can only read predictable books when I don't have the brain capacity to understand how predictable it is, if that makes sense. But I did read her Beach Reads book and I love Emily Henry. I've got nothing against her, but her books are very straightforward, or this one is particularly. I think I love Beach Read. I love that one. I think it wasn't too stereotypical, but this one might be, or I could be judging a book by its cover and the first few chapters I read. So we shall see. Actually, screw that. I didn't even get past the prologue. That's right, because I just wasn't stimulated by it. Next we have Elinor, Oliphant is Completely Fine by Gail Honeyman. I still have not read this book. I've heard a lot of good things about it. I got it in lockdown. It's about a girl who leads a simple life, and it's just obviously something goes haywire in order to create a plot line, but it just sounds really interesting. I think it was just a different book in comparison to other books, I guess. It's not a straightforward, doesn't say anything about a romance, doesn't say anything about, you know, crime or anything. It just seems to follow this one woman's life, and I think it's just different and could be very unique, so definitely have to read that one sometime soon. Then we have The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. I am not the biggest fantasy reader, but Rachel Catherine read the series and she loved it and kept raving on about it, and I have in the past, when she has recommended books and I've read them, I've loved them just as much. So I picked this one up because I read The Six of Crows and I didn't like it, so I wasn't going to read the Shadow of Bone series. And yes, don't come for me, I probably should have read the Shadow of Bone series because I probably would have enjoyed Six of Crows, but I couldn't do it. So oh, my back is killing me, man. Do it, but I got this book and I'm hoping I will enjoy it. I did again just read the first page to see if I wanted to read this book, because I was going through a crisis of finding the next book I wanted to read, and it is very simple. The first page is actually giving me the Magic Faraway Tree vibes, which, if you don't know, that is by Eden Blyton, a very iconic author. And then the next one is The House of New Beginnings by Lucy Diamond. I have read The Beach Cafe. Oh my god, there's a novella to that. I gotta read that. And I loved that book. I thought it was so good. And this one is another one of her books, and it follows 3 different storylines in the same townhouse by the sound of it. Yes, it's a Regency house near Brighton seafront, and it's got 3 tenants in it, and it follows their lives, and obviously they interconnect. I don't know if it's like different perspectives, wouldn't have a clue, but it just sounds really interesting. You've got sous chef, a woman following her childhood sweetheart down south, and you've also got a woman who's been impacted by a devastating loss in her life. So yeah, it's just 3 different storylines coming together, something different, something lighthearted, like maybe not lighthearted, but something similar to, you know, the books I said. This is definitely a book that I would read if I was looking for something not too brain moggling. Next we have Get a Life, Chloe Brown. I've heard mixed reviews on this book. A lot of people have loved it, and then some people have said it's quite ordinary, or they've enjoyed the next 2 books, not this book. So I was very fascinated to see. It's very cool how they've created a 3-part series with 3 different sister perspectives. I think that was so different, so I'm excited to read this book and also the other 2. It obviously follows the first sister and her relationship with this guy called Red, and then there's another 2 that follow their relationships. So yeah, it'll be very interesting to see what that's like. It's also by Talia Hibbert. I don't think I mentioned that. Then I have Big Little Lies by Leanne Moriarty. I've read 3 Wishes and The Last Anniversary by her. I love her writing style, but you definitely have to be in a certain mood to read her books. They're very straightforward, they're nothing bad. You have the patience. I think patience is the key. They can be quite slow burning. I know this is a massive TV series, I think, yeah, TV series, I'm pretty sure it is, but yeah, it's a series on HBO. But I definitely wanted to read the book before I watched the TV show. I don't know, I just feel like because I am a fan of Leanne Moriarty, it would be rude not to read her book before watching the TV show. Then we have Inner Holidaze by Christina Lauren. I have read The Soulmate Equation and The Unhoneymooners, 2 books which were 5-star reads for me. I loved them. They were just phenomenal, and I loved The Soulmate Equation because it was so different to more different romances. It was a different trope in it. It's a fake dating trope, but it was just a unique fake dating trope. I wanted to read her Christmas one. I was going to read it at Christmas time, bought it for Christmas purposes in December, but I did not get around to it. So I don't know if I'm going to read it during the year or keep it for Christmas, because I would love to do like a Christmas video, a Christmas book video, but I would also love to just like read a Christmas book at Christmas time, you know? I had to do a quick intermission because basically my battery charger died, so we'll see how long we got. It's not a full battery, but I'm not really rambling too much, so we'll see how we go. I've also propped you up on a tripod, which number 1 I should have done in the first place, because now it's better for my back and you can see me clearer, but we're just gonna move on from the situation. Moving on, we have Normal People by Sally Rooney. I've not read a Sally Rooney book. I've heard highly good things about her and her books, and especially like Normal People and obviously the other book, Conversation with Friends. So I decided to pick up Normal People and I will see how I go with it. I really do like the storyline, how it's about 2 people and how they grew up in Ireland. I thought that was so unique, and how one is so polar opposite to the other, and how they strike a conversation and things change. So it sounds really interesting in the sense that it's not a stereotypical trope line, like, you know, it's based in America and, you know, it's 2 school people and they don't know each other, but it just sounds like very interesting. I don't know how to describe it to you. I haven't read anything, so I don't know what it will be like, but yeah, it just really sounded interesting when people were talking about it, and I looked at it and I was like, this is not bad looking at all. So yep, that's next on my list. Next we have Tools of Engagement by Tessa Bailey. This is another well talked about author, and I know her books can be very smutty. I have not read one of her books yet as of date. I did pick this one up to try it, and I skipped to a random page and saw the word babe, and I was like, oh no, this could be very cringy. I hate the word babe, hate it with a passion. No judgment against those that do use it in some circumstances. I think it's very cute personally, just not for me. This book encompasses 2 people who are invited to a TV show called Flip Off, which is a competition who can do renovate the best, and obviously I'm assuming there's like, obviously there's going to be romance and all that in it, so it sounds interesting. But I thought what drew me really to it was the cover and the fact it was a renovation romance. Like, I think that sounds different. I don't know, I try, if I'm reading a romance, to read a romance that's not set in the same setting all the time, and I think this could be different, but it could also be cringy. So we shall see how we go. Hopefully I do like it, because that means it's another author I can read, but we shall see how we go with that one. Then we have Love Your Life by Sophie Kinsella, I want to say. This is another interesting book that I have seen all over TikTok. It's about a woman who's sick of online dating. And she finds a stranger, and basically how it follows their life and how they start to learn about their habits and their quirks and family and the dog. Obviously, that's what I love about the cover, how there's a dog. I feel like more books need to encompass animals. I think they could make a storyline so good. Just a personal opinion. But yeah, it just sounded different again with romantic storylines, so I picked that one up in December as well. Now we move on to this side. I have some Colleen Hoover, clearly 3 Colleen Hoover books. I have Without Merit, Verity, and November 9. I have read It Ends With Us, Ugly Love, and Reminders of Him. All 5-star reads. I love Colleen Hoover, love her books. So that is why I decided to get Verity. I know Verity is quite different. It's a thriller book and a lot of people loved it and I can't stop raving about it, and there's a lot of theories that people are talking about, so I really wanted to, you know, I was getting a bit of FOMO, so I wanted to read it, and I thought if I really loved her other books, I should definitely love this one. November 9 is just another iconic book that I really want to read. I think it's so cool that it sits on the same day each year and it just follows that day each year. I don't know, that sounded cool and different. And then Without Merit, I read the blurb. Again, it sounded so different and so unique. And I just really wanted to read it. It doesn't sound like your stereotypical love romance, the circumstances surrounding how they're brought together, but obviously there is stereotypical in the sense that there's always one that's in trouble and then there's one who's not, and they come together, and you know, the one is exposed to all these different things. But I also really love that trope. I think it's so cool when, I don't know, one person has experienced so much of the world and they share it with another person and it opens so many doors for that one person. Then we have 1,000 Splendid Suns by Khaled Hosseini, I want to say. I could completely be wrong. My apologies if I pronounce the author's name wrong. This is about a woman who at 15 was sent to Kabul to marry a man, and then it shows how she creates a friendship with a local teenager, as strong as a bond between a mother and daughter, and obviously Taliban starts to take over Kabul. Basically follows the story of how basically are tasked with, I don't know if they escape, but protect themselves from harm, obviously. So it just sounds so phenomenal. If you have not read The Coffee Shop of Kabul, that's another book I would recommend. I really love that book. I can't remember the author's name, but it's also set in Kabul and it's a cafe that she creates, but it adds so much history and relevance to the culture of Kabul today, talking about how, you know, guidelines for the walls, they have to have a certain height on walls, they have to have bomb-proof windows and all that stuff. So I think it's a certain, reading the book, I have a certain privilege of realizing how lucky I am in the place I live. I don't have to wake up and fear for my life, be so uncertain about how my day's gonna turn out. Like I can wake up and I know I'm gonna go to work and then, you know, do some uni and then come home and eat dinner, but these people that go out, they might not come back, and they know that. And I think it's so sad that there are civilians in this world that can't live a normal life, and it's just so frustrating. It's a tangent that I could go on for minutes and minutes that I don't need to, because we've all heard it, because obviously there's so many people that agree with me in this regard and heard it all before, and it's just infuriatingly frustrating position to be in. I'm gonna pull out these next 4 books, but you can see there are the Twighlight books. I have not read Twighlight, I know, don't come for me. When the series was really at its peak, I think I was like 11 or 12, and I just never read it. I've watched all the movies multiple times and I loved the movies, but I just never read the books. So that's my goal this year, along with some other series I want to read. You'll see another one in the second that I want to finish. Yeah, just an ultimate goal. Fun fact, these last 3 books are actually from a secondhand bookshop that is near my house. I am shocked how good condition these books are in. I got all these for 24 bucks. So if you have a secondhand bookshop near you, I would highly recommend going to a secondhand bookshop. I am definitely picky when I go in. I still try and grab the books that are the best quality, and in saying that, I do sometimes spend up to $12 on a book. I know the secondhand bookshop I go to, they range from about $7 to $14, $7 being like the ones that are not in the best condition, and then 12 being the ones that are in better condition, and then 14 the ones that are like brand new, come in just from the shop and they are new releases. Then we have, oh my god, just chill out people, chill out. Not me talking to the books as if they are literal
toddlers who have just moved themselves out of place, even though I pulled out a book, so therefore they did move out of place. You can tell how obsessed I am with books and how careful and cautious I am. That's embarrassing. I did not realise I caught that on camera.
Then we have The Lost Apothecary by Sarah Penner. I picked up this book, hadn't heard anything about it. I saw one person on YouTube read it and she loved it, and I just thought it was so cool. It's based in the 18th century London, and it's a secret apothecary shop that caters to an unusual kind of clientele. Basically, this woman sells well-disguised poisons to use against oppressive men. We love to hear it. And then obviously there's an issue because there's a 12-year-old who makes a fatal mistake and starts a string of consequences that echo through the century. And then, oh, I didn't even know this, but it actually then goes into present day London, and she follows the apothecary murders that haunt London 200 years later and how they collide. And yeah, that actually sounds really fascinating. I didn't realize it was a dual perspective of 18th century and present day. Well, I just learned something sitting here reading it to you guys. But yeah, it sounds so good. Fun fact, hardcover came up 20 bucks. That's why I picked it up, and that's why I bought it. Not usually a hardcover gal, I like my paperbacks, but they only sell these in hardcovers currently, as I am aware. I just was taking what I could get. Now we're moving down to this bottom shelf, which has a lot of my like autobiography books and a series, which you can see. Okay, let's start off with the Trauma Cleaner by Sarah, whose last names are so kerfuffling sometimes. Cranistian, I want to say Cranistian. So this book follows a woman who basically cleans up crime. Oh, I don't know why I'm like not in the middle. This woman basically cleans up crime scenes for a living, and so she shares her perspective of these different crime scenes. Oh, and then there's, you know, like husbands and father drag queens. So like those two are just examples, but this book basically tells her story of all these different stories, and I just think it's so fascinating. I was meant to read this book for my major work for English. Didn't get around to reading this one, unfortunately, but I saw it in the secondhand bookshop. I'd been having my eye on it, but it's about $30 in QBD. So when I saw it for 12 bucks, I was like, yes, please. So yeah, I'm very excited to read it. I think it'll be a very good read. I'm really into biographies at the moment. I've read The Education. If you haven't read that, 100% recommend. By Tara Westover, which is her story. I have it right here actually. You can clearly see I keep some of my favourite books on the shelf still, so that's the book I just said. I also keep reminders of him on my bookshelf too. Sometimes I can't part with some books in this book. This is one of them. This will always be one of my all-time favourite reads ever. Then we have The Maid by Stephanie Land. Fun fact, this book is actually a major TV show now on Netflix, and I didn't realise it was. I picked it up because I had read good things about it and it looked really good. This I bought after I finished Educated, I should say, and I really wanted to get into more biographies. I'm really excited to read it. I think it'll be another really good read, and it basically follows Stephanie Land's memoir. Sorry, it's a memoir, my apologies. And about being a mother at 28 and how she is a cleaner, and basically being a cleaner keeps a roof over her daughter and her head. She tries to get into higher education, assisting housing, government assistance, basically telling every truth that people need to hear, basically, like just not hiding anything or covering anything. So I think this will be a fascinating read. Really excited to read it because then I can go and watch the TV show, which apparently is also a really good show. So yeah, next two are the Inheritance Game books. I've already read them. I just want to keep them on a shelf because technically the third book doesn't come out till October, I think. The next two are thrillers, or mystery thrillers, I want to say. I don't know. First one is The Perfect Wife by J.P. Delaney. Haven't read this author either. I haven't heard anything about them, but it did have good reviews on Goodreads. I got this from another secondhand bookshop, not my local one near Newcastle, and I'm very excited to read it. It sounds really interesting. It's about a woman who wakes up from a coma with no memory of what happened. Her husband is telling one story and then she realizes the story isn't adding up, and also too, she had been pronounced dead 5 years ago, and so it doesn't make sense. Yeah, the blurb really drew me in. That's why I basically got it. The next one is The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides. Michaelides, I want to say. Again, I've heard so many good things about this book. I just didn't know if I wanted to pick it up, but I hadn't read the blurb, to be fair. I'd only seen the cover, and then I read the blurb and it sounds so interesting. It's about a woman who is serving time in jail for shooting her husband in the head 5 times, but she hasn't spoken a single word since the shooting. It just sounded so interesting and fascinating to me, and I wanted to get something different. You can tell I do a lot of justification with my books buying because I have to justify every purchase so I don't feel guilty for buying another book. I'm gonna pick up the first book, even though I've read it, is the Medorian Chronicles series. Now, I know this series has been out for a long time now, and it's probably a bit due past my age, but I started reading it back in 2019 when it was becoming popular, and I never finished it. High School got in the way. I finished Akane and Raylia, and I'm currently up to Dracora. Have been for God knows how long, so I need to finish Dracora, Greyvale, We Three Heroes, and Vardacia. I think those are the 4 I need to finish. That's my other series I want to finish this year. I really enjoyed this fantasy book. I'm very picky with my fantasy books for some reason. So yeah, I really want to finish that series. That's all I have to say for that. Now we're on to the final cubby, which is also completely full. I didn't realize it had gotten full. So the first one is Red, White and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. I know I am very late to this trend. I have heard a number of people talk about it. Friends, not just TikTok and YouTube, but also friends rave about this book, and I just haven't got around to it. When I was with one of my friends, she really wanted to purchase another book for herself, and she was trying to justify getting it, and I was like, look, I'll buy this book if you buy the book you want. I was gonna get this book anyway. It was just more, you know, justification to buy this book myself, but also give her the incentive to buy the book that she kept going back to. Yeah, I'm excited to read it. It follows a son of the President of the United States and also follows a prince. So yeah, it just sounds very interesting. It follows their romance and relationship, and I think it will be very entertaining. I know it's given quite a few people a good laugh, and I'm definitely excited to read it. I think it'll be so different, and I love the chapter. Then I had the Kiss Quotient by Helen Huang. I'm very excited to read this one. It's about a woman who has Asperger's. It follows her romantic relationship with a man called Michael, who basically she hires in order for her to tick off, oh my god, to tick off a bunch of things she wants to try. So like foreplay, French kissing, you know, you get it. You get it. If I just say those 2 things, you understand. Damn, I didn't read the blurb properly. I've heard a lot of good things about this book, but I didn't realize what it was specifically about. But that sounds really interesting. It's definitely a different trope, and obviously I'm assuming they fall in love, but that sounds incredible. The next 2 we have is The Secret Recipe for Second Chances by J.D. Barrett. I, again, have never heard of this author nor any of her books. This was at a secondhand bookstore, and it is about a woman who's leaving her husband and how it's complicated because they're joint owners of a restaurant, as they're both chefs. She also is trying to open up her own restaurant, so it follows that. And then obviously another love story with another man after leaving her husband. So it just sounds interesting, different. That's why I picked it up. Again, unique. We look for unique romance books. That's Sarah's #1 goal. Give My Marriage a Year, yet again, by Holly Wainwright. Again, another book that's been talked about, not as much, but I have heard about, and it's been really recommended. It does sound interesting. It actually skips the part of, you know, becoming a couple and goes right to the fact that they've been together 14 years, they have a mortgage, they have 2 kids, they have 2 careers, you know, plenty of history, blah, blah, blah. Do I want to continue in this marriage? So it basically follows, you know, is this marriage worth hanging on to, or should I just leave it? So I think that should be very interesting too, you know? It's like romance, but a troubled romance. We have The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. Again, I have not read this book. Again, very popular book, so I'm not going to go into the synopsis of it because you guys will understand it. Chose not to buy this book for so long just because of the situation that's around the author. If you don't know how this author wrote this book, I would highly recommend you look it up, read about it before you go ahead and buy the book. The next one is Boy Swallows Universe by Trent Dalton. I've seen this book again. Obviously, I keep saying it. How many times have I said I've heard of this book? It's so popular. Book Talk, BookTube, like, we get the point. Basically, I hadn't read the synopsis of this book, and if you haven't either, it's about a lost father, a mute brother, a junkie mum, and a heroin dealer for a stepfather, and a notorious crime for a babysitter. A boy called Ellie and his life in 1985 in Brisbane, so it's based in Australia. And yeah, how it gets a lot more serious, how he has to grow up and deal with his life, you know, his mum, as I just said, and his lost dad and a mute brother. Yeah, it just sounds a little bit different and a different, unique storyline. And also he meets a girl and falls in love with a girl that is someone he really, of his dreams, a girl of his dreams, as it says on the synopsis. The next book is Grown Ups by Marion Keyes. It's about an Irish family. It's about 700 pages. Yeah, 700 pages. And it follows a man, his two brothers, and their wives, and how they always celebrate everything. They go away together. They're a happy family until Ed's wife, she gets a concussion and she can't keep her thoughts to herself, and she says one remark at the main character Johnny's birthday party, and obviously cracks start to seep through the family. So I thought it sounded really different, really interesting, because it's obviously an Irish family, so I thought that would be chaos in itself. And yeah, I thought it'd be fun to read. This is from the secondhand bookstore. It was $12. It was the best out of the three. There was 3 on the bookshelf, and this was in the best condition of the lot. So you can find really good conditioned books in the secondhand bookstores. Last 2 is related to the series situation with Twighlight and the Medorian Chronicles. These are the other 2 series I want to read this year. It's the After series and the Bridgerton series. I loved Bridgerton. Obviously there are some controversial things in the TV show. I'm very aware of that. I did love the show, loved the characters, loved these 2. So I wanted to read the book series. I have watched some reading vlogs and some reviews on the book series, and it is very racy. Basically everything you would expect from this era of a book. So I'm going into this series fully knowing that I will get aggravated at some point. Final book, guys. Final one. After. I've watched all 3 movies, After We Collided and After We Fell. I believe there is one more coming. There is one more coming out. I'm really excited for it. It is definitely not plot driven at all. Like, there's nothing to it, but I just love the characters. I'm gonna admit it. It's a guilty pleasure. I do enjoy it. So I wanted to read the series because I know it is a big series as well, and I needed to hop on that bandwagon as well. So I hope you all enjoyed this very long-winded video. I think I've got about 40 minutes of footage to edit, but I am very happy with how this video turned out. I'm starting to get better at my thoughts on books, or particularly books I haven't read yet. But yeah, I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give this video a like, because it does let me know that you do enjoy my book videos, and it also supports my channel. Subscribe if you're new, because I definitely will be posting more book videos in the future. It's not going to be the forefront of my channel. I would love to, but I just don't have the time to create the book content that a lot of booktubers do. It's just, congratulate those people. The amount of work, like Jack Edwards, Steph Bora, just 2 off the top of my head, like the amount of work that goes into their videos is phenomenal. So I will definitely include and incorporate book videos throughout my channel, but mainly obviously vlogs are my go-to types of videos. So yeah, if you are new and you're here for books, I do vlogs, so just put it out there. But yeah, I hope you all enjoyed this video, and I'll see you all in my next one very, very soon. Goodbye.